Hey guys, it's Albee Swenson. The theme for this year's Unbreakable is from Psalm 92 that says the righteous will flourish like a palm tree. We don't have any palm trees in Minnesota where I'm from, but I've always loved them. I love them in part because they stand so straight and tall, and it just feels like they're above everything else. So often in life, we've got storms and chaos and drama and craziness, and yet we can be like these palms that stand above it all. We don't have to get sucked into it all and be consumed with it. We can stand straight knowing that when we're rooted in Christ, we've got a solid foundation and He's going to get us through whatever it is. And then I not only want to stand nice and straight and tall, I also want to be a refuge for other people so that they can come and experience that same joy and peace. So join us at Unbreakable, where we'll talk about this even more. We're continuing our series titled Last Call with an episode that I'm calling The Weariness of Complaining. Hey, it's Amber, wife, mother, type A child of God. Here are little things we look at everyday issues from a biblical perspective with one simple goal: to know and love God more. Thanks for listening. We are continuing in Malachi chapter 2, picking up at verse 17 that says this: "You have wearied the Lord with your words." How have we wearied him, you ask? By saying, all who do evil are good in the eyes of the Lord, and he is pleased with them. Or, where is the God of justice? I went to the People's Bible, and it said this: "This presents us with an impossibility, God getting tired." In the book of Psalms, we read that God does not slumber or sleep. In Psalm 139, we're told that He is there when we rise and when we lie down. If we go up to the heavens, He's there. And if we go down to the depths, He is there. There's no place we can go where He is not. He does not get tired. We don't have to worry that He's sleeping. And yet here we are, God saying, I am weary. Continuing on with the People's Bible. "But there is one thing that makes the Almighty tired. He gets tired when His people complain and whine and accuse Him unjustly. They say He is a God who loves evildoers." That is a blasphemous conclusion made by people who judge things around them and decide that because the evil people flourish and God's people suffer, He must love the evil more than the good. That is not the way God likes to be seen. And when we complain, first of all, we may not realize how bad it is for us. You can Google this and find all this yourself. You can go look for the different studies that have been done. You can go look through the journals. I'm just going to give you some of what complaining does in our body. First of all, it increases cortisol, which is a stress hormone. So if you want to feel stressed out, then go ahead and complain because it will do it for you. The more you complain, the more you're going to feel stressed out. It's absolutely the opposite of what most of us want. When we're complaining, it's usually because something is not going the way we want it to go, or, we're not having a good day. But by complaining, we're adding to our stress. Okay. Repeated complaining increases the cortisol, which increases our chance of developing, check this out, obesity, heart disease, and diabetes. So because of that increased cortisol, which we keep doing because we complain so much, our body literally is more prone to disease. It can actually damage the brain, particularly the hippocampus, which is the part of our brain that is in charge of learning, emotions, and forming new memories. You are causing brain damage when you complain constantly. And also, because we tend to mirror the moods of others, when we complain, it gets other people around us in a bad mood, which just causes the day to go that much worse. That's something I learned when I started working as an elderly companion. The first woman that I started working for told me that her father had Alzheimer's, and it was very important that we understood that we were being paid to go and take care of him, and she wanted him in a good mood, which meant that we needed to be in a good mood. So when we walked through the doors, no matter what had gone on that day, she did not care. She wanted our mood to be good so that he would have a good day. And so, when we are complaining constantly, don't be surprised that the people around you complain, that they're bummed out, that they're in a bad mood, that they just are seeing, the glass half empty instead of half full. Okay, that's what it does to our body. Let's talk about why our complaints weary God. Okay, number one, because they attack the idea of God's sovereignty, God being above everything, in command, in control, knowing what's going on, understanding far more than we do. Romans 8:28 says that we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him. That doesn't mean that we understand. God's idea of good and our idea of good are not necessarily the same thing. Just ask Joseph. Do you think Joseph's idea of good would have been to be thrown in a pit and then sold into slavery and then go to Potiphar's house and become, the man in charge of the whole house and then be thrown into a dungeon? I guarantee you his way would have been a totally different route. Or how about Daniel? Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they were taken captives and put in Nebuchadnezzar's court. They were nobility in Judah, taken away. They had to serve Nebuchadnezzar, this heathen god. They had to learn a totally different culture. Would that have been their plan? What about Esther? Do you think it would have been her idea of a good plan to be orphaned so that she had to live with her uncle or cousin Mordecai and then marry Xerxes, this crazy king who is prone to drunkenness and violence, and she doesn't even get to decide when she'll be, seen with him or when she'll be in his presence? That's up for him to call her. Do you think that was a good idea of a good plan for her life? All these people would have probably very likely chosen a very different path. And yet, God was not only working for their good through the bad, he was also working for the good of his people. He was raising these people to positions through a very difficult route so that they might be in a position to help his people through some pretty trying times. Someone, is sick. And our idea when we pray to God is that God would heal them. Clearly, God, you don't want these people to deal with chronic illness. And yet sometimes that's the path God chooses. Sometimes I had a friend that I prayed for. She had cancer and she would go in remission, and she would be in remission for a year or 10 months. And then she'd go back for a checkup and it would be back. And she went through several grueling treatments. Grueling. And I was still praying for total and complete healing right up until the week that she went into the hospital to die. And then for a few days, I was furious with God. I was like, I'm praying for healing. I know what she does. She does so much for her family. She does so much for the church. And by the way, have you noticed how much she does for me? Have you noticed how she shows up at my Bible studies, what she does? Have you noticed that every time I have an event, who is there helping me out? Have you noticed? This woman should not be taken from this earth. I was so mad at God that I refused to go to the hospital to see her. until 2 days before she died, when I got the kick in the pants that I needed, as in, you know what, Amber, just because you're mad that she's going to heaven doesn't mean that she should be the one to suffer. And I went to the hospital, and when I walked in, she said, Amber, you came. Like she had been waiting. How silly of me to be mad at God when his plans and mine do not coincide, because you know what? He is sovereign. He knows everything. He understands far more than I do. And you know what? He actually did answer my prayer. She had total and complete healing after years and years and years of suffering and struggle. And you know what? God said, it's time that she's going to be healed completely. And who am I to know how God should best answer prayers? And yet that doesn't keep me from sometimes telling God how I think he should best do it. Anyway, so our complaining wearies God because we question God's sovereignty as if he doesn't understand what's going on. Number 2, our complaints show a lack of faith. I want to direct you to Numbers 13. That's where God told the children of Israel to go into the land. In fact, the exact words were, God told Joshua, send some men to explore the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the Israelites. Go check out the land that I'm giving you. It's a done deal. Check out your new home. See what it's like. Come back, report to everybody else. The men did. And they said one sentence about how the land is, oh, yeah, it's flowing with milk and honey. It's amazing. And then they went on and on and on about how, but the people are powerful. The men are huge. The cities are fortified. There's this people in that land, and this people, and this people, and this people, and this people. So, yeah, they reported back with complaints, not trusting in God to do what he told them he would do. There was none of that. It was just, well, yeah, it's a great land. Unfortunately, the people are big and so are their walls. I don't know what we're going to do about this. Total lack of faith on their part. Proverbs 3, verses 5 and 6 say, trust in the Lord with all of your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him or submit to him, and he will make your paths straight with all your heart. That part of your heart that's doubting, pray the prayer that man prayed who brought his son to be healed. And he said to Jesus, if you can. And Jesus said, if you can, anything is possible for the one who believes. And the man said, Lord, I do believe. Help me overcome my unbelief. It's okay to admit it to God. It's hard to trust right now. I'm doubting a little bit. This is crazy. I've never been here before. Admit it. But admit it in the sense of not embracing it, like the spies who went into the land. Like, I doubt we could ever do this. This is far beyond us. We can't do this. Admit it, saying, God, this just means you're going to have to do something big here. I did a retreat, a 3-day retreat. I spoke 4 times during the 3 days. The last day I was exhausted, and there was a little worship service before I was to go on and speak. And I very honestly admitted to God, look, God, I am not filling up to this right now. I feel like I have nothing to give. I can't even really concentrate. I don't know where my thoughts are. So I'm going to need you to completely and totally take this over and do what I can't right now. And if you choose not to, it's okay, because it's on me. I'm a weak human being. But if you do, we both know where it's come from. It's all you, because I don't have it in me right now. And God showed up the way he always does, and I made it through, and it went just fine. But God is not shocked by our honesty and prayers. So when we do say, I'm weak, I'm struggling to believe right now, Lord, I do want to trust in you with all my heart. But guess what? Right now, there's a big part of my heart that's going, I don't see how this is going to work out. Just be honest with God. Give me the faith that I'm struggling to have right now. And don't be afraid to call a believer and admit, I'm struggling. That's what we are meant to do. We are meant to bear with one another, to walk alongside each other, to help each other out. That's the beauty of friendship. Sometimes I'm strong and I can give to you, and sometimes you're strong and I need to take from you. Nothing wrong with that. Forget what you see. Forget what you think is best. So much of our life, we're trusting in what we see. I see the projections. I see what they say is going to happen. Who cares what they say is going to happen? Trust in God. Pray and ask Him to be with you and give you the best possible outcome. We walk by faith, not by sight. Doesn't matter what you see. What did Peter see when he jumped out of that boat to walk to Jesus on the water? He saw the waves. He felt the wind. But Jesus was there saying, no, you can come to me. Jesus wouldn't have told him to come if he wasn't going to help Peter walk on the water. Submit entirely to God. So in this version, it said, in all your ways, submit to Him. That means when His way does not align with what you wanted, submit to Him. Okay, God, that's the way you're going to answer my prayer. It's okay. It doesn't matter what I wanted because you're sovereign and you're good and I trust you completely. And I know that even if you go, this way and that way and over and around, you can still get me to the same place. And I am never going to miss out on something you want from me. Because if I don't have it, you don't deem it being something that I need or should have right now. If I really need it, you'll make sure I have it one way or the other. Whatever it is, health, a house, a long life, a child, a spouse, whatever it is, God is capable of giving it to you. If you don't have it, submit to Him. Okay, God, then right now, that's not what you have for my life. Good enough. Number 3, our complaints do nothing. Have you ever noticed that? I don't know about you, but sometimes, our husbands, they kind of, for those of us who are married, if we bring a complaint to them, it can go very poorly if they think that they need to fix it for us. And so it's a good idea to say, I don't want you to do anything here. I just want you to listen. So I just listen. Don't have the wheel spinning like, oh man, I should try to do this or tell her to do this or whatever. No. I just want to be listened to right now. So you don't need to fix it. The problem is that so often when we go to God in prayer, all we're doing is complaining. God, do you see this? Can you believe what is going on? Why is this happening? You know what we're not doing? We're not asking for help at all. We are strictly complaining. And when we do that, we shouldn't expect anything to change because all we're doing is complaining. If we want something done, if we want God's help, we should ask Him for help. But a lot of times our prayers are just complaints. Like, hey, this is wrong and this is wrong. And I don't see how this is supposed to work. And did you notice? And God's up in heaven like, are you done? I mean, did you want me to do anything about this? Or do you just want me to listen here right now? I mean, I can listen all day long, but I already knew that. So what do you want? That's a totally, totally different thing. Proverbs 16:2 says, all a person's ways seem pure to them, but motives are weighed by the Lord. You know what that means? It means God knows far more about the situation than we do. So when we're complaining and telling Him, this isn't fair, do you see what's going on? He actually not only sees what's going on, but He knows the reasons people are doing what they're doing, which we don't. He knows far more. We don't know motives. We're just going along making notes of what we see, and God knows far more. So don't treat Him as if He doesn't. right now I'm in a class, and one of the parts of our class right now is to find out our strengths finders. And I'm just finding out about myself. I'm just finding out my strengths and what that means and how that means I relate to other people. And I am absolutely baffled that I'm sitting here just learning about myself this late in life and thinking, God knew this all along. God has always known this. It might be a huge surprise to me, but this is absolutely nothing to God. He knew this. He created me. He knows everything about me. Okay. Those are the things that weary God. Our complaints weary him for these reasons. So what gets God excited? How do we know? Well, we're going to look at the life of Jesus. Jesus is the perfect representation of God. He is God. And if we want to know the Father, all we have to do is look at Jesus. And so when we look at how he responded to things in the Gospels, we get an idea of what impresses God. So, first of all, boldness. In Matthew 15, we hear about a Canaanite woman. She was a Gentile who came to Jesus for help because her daughter was demon-possessed. And she cried out to Jesus, but Jesus didn't pay any attention to her. He didn't respond at all. She kept crying out, and the disciples finally said, "Make her go away." As in, this woman is so annoying. Please make it stop. She came and she knelt down in front of Jesus and said, "Lord, help me. My daughter needs help." And Jesus said to her, "I was sent to the lost sheep of Israel. It would not be right for me to take the food from the children and give it to the dogs." And she said, "Yes, Lord, but even the dogs get the crumbs that fall from the table." Her boldness impressed Jesus. He said, "Woman, you have great faith." And he gave her exactly what she was asking for. Abraham did the same thing when he prayed. He was walking with the angel of the Lord, with Jesus before he was a person on earth and walking the earth. And Jesus was saying that Sodom and Gomorrah were going to be destroyed. And Abraham boldly said to God, "Well, would you destroy it if there were 50 righteous people?" And the angel said no. And he said, "Well, what about 45? No. What about 40? For the sake of 40, I won't. Well, what about 30? Okay, for the sake of 30. Okay, well, what about 20? And finally, Abraham went back one more time. He said, "For the sake of 10, will you spare the city?" And the angel said, "For the sake of 10, I will." Not once do we see that Jesus is annoyed, the angel of the Lord, who would eventually be Jesus. Not once do we see him being annoyed. Like, Abraham, quit talking. Why do you keep asking these things? Don't ask. Not once is there any annoyance or anger. Boldness impresses God. Number 2, crazy generosity. Jesus was watching people put their offerings into the temple offering, and he noticed a widow who dropped in 2 very small coins. And he pointed out to his disciples that this woman gave more than anyone else because she had given everything, all that she had to live on. There was another time in John chapter 12, I believe, where we're told about Mary. There was a dinner given in Jesus' honor, and Mary took a pint of perfume, an expensive nard. We're told she broke it. She broke the bottle and poured it on Jesus' feet. And the disciples, particularly Judas, who took care of the money, he was pretty appalled at all this because, he said this could have really been used to do something good. It could have been sold and it could have helped the poor. We found out actually, though, that Judas just would have liked some of that money for himself. But Jesus said, leave her alone. She's done a beautiful thing. That lavish worship, that lavish generosity, taking something that cost like a year's wages and pouring it on Jesus' feet, he found beautiful. He didn't find it wasteful. He found her heart beautiful. The third thing, unbelievable trust. Just like crazy trust that you know God is going to work it out. So we hear in Luke chapter 7 about the centurion. Now, a centurion was a Roman soldier. He had 100 soldiers underneath him, and he sent to Jesus because he said that his servant was sick. So he sent people to tell Jesus, and these people were telling Jesus how great this man was. You should help him. And Jesus was on his way to see the centurion and to heal his servant when the centurion said, hey, look, don't bother coming to my house. I don't consider myself worthy. That's why I didn't come myself. Don't come to my house. Just say the word, and I know it will be done, because I myself am a man under authority with people underneath me. I tell them to go and they go. I tell them to come and they come. I tell my servant to do this and he does this. So I know that all you have to do is say the word, and whatever you say will be done. And Jesus said, I have not found such great faith even in Israel. And we are told Jesus was amazed by great faith, knowing God is bigger, knowing that God can do what you can't see right now. I don't know how you're going to do it. It doesn't matter how you're going to do it, because I trust and I believe that you can. Absolutely, 100%. Notice too that the centurion didn't act as if he was so important, so Jesus should do something for him. He said, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy to come to you. So when we come to God in prayer, instead of complaining, we can fall at his feet and say, God, you don't owe me anything. I know you don't owe me anything, but I also know who you are and what you are capable of doing. And I'm going to trust you. Even if it's not my way, even if it's not my time, even if it's not what I'm asking, I'm going to trust you to answer in the best way possible for everyone involved every single time. Man, that must delight the Lord to hear prayers like that versus the constant complaints that we offer up. And you know, I learned several years ago that the way to conquer and combat complaining is with gratitude. And so when things aren't going well, a beautiful remedy, instead of complaining, we can say, Lord, but you've been so good. Look at all that you have done. Look at all that you have given me. Look at the salvation that I have. Look at the spiritual gifts that I have, because you are so gracious and you are so good. You don't have to answer my prayers the way I'm asking, because you are just that good. I shouldn't expect to have a great day every day. You've been better than I deserve. You've given me so many good days. You've given me so much to thank you for, that even if you don't give me what I want, I'm still going to worship you, because you're worthy of it all. Man, is that a different way to approach God. This has been Little Things, because in God's kingdom, the little things are the big